Babysitting jobs can be a great source of income for teenagers who love kids and don't have the time or experience to do other work. But as with many other opportunities, there will always be people who take advantage. This is the case of Margaret Fox, who hasn't been seen or heard from in almost 50 years. Margaret Ellen Fox was born on February 4th, 1960. She was the only girl in a family of 6 children, and most of her brothers were older. According to her mom, Margaret was a good child and didn't get in trouble a lot. She played the piano and rode horses, but she also wrote in her diary about being bullied and how she wanted to move to California or Florida from her home in New Jersey and start a new life. On June 19th, 1974, 14-year-old Margaret and her 11-year-old cousin, Lynn Park, put a babysitting ad in their local paper. It wasn't long before they got an offer. A man who called himself John Marshall contacted Lynn and offered her a job babysitting his 5-year-old son. But Lynn's mom wouldn't let her take the job because it was in Mount Holly, too far away from their home in Burlington for her comfort. After this, John Marshall contacted Margaret and offered her the job. According to him, she would get $40 a week to watch his son, 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. It was probably a lucrative offer to a teenager in the 1970s, and Margaret's dad said she could do it. The job was delayed several times over the next few days, but finally, Margaret and John Marshall agreed to meet at a bus stop in Mount Holly. From there, his wife would drive her the rest of the way in a red Volkswagen. On the morning of Monday, June 24th, Margaret left a note for her parents to let them know where she was going. Her younger brother accompanied her to the bus stop around 8:40 a.m., where she soon boarded a bus alone. 2 witnesses would later see her near the bus stop in Mount Holly, in the area where she was supposed to meet John Marshall. She hasn't been seen since. Marshall's wife was supposed to bring Margaret home around 2:30 p.m. When she still wasn't home by 3:30, her mom called the phone number she'd left behind. But as it turned out, that number was for a phone booth at a supermarket in Lumberton, a couple of miles down the road from Mount Holly. Margaret's mom began calling anyone she could find with the last name Marshall. Margaret's dad drove to Mount Holly to see if he could figure anything out, but presumably didn't. He called the police. The FBI got involved in the case pretty soon after this. Burlington investigators looked for her as well and tried to figure out just who John Marshall was. A man named Jack Marshall was the assistant manager at the supermarket where the payphone was. He was questioned, but no connection between him and Margaret's disappearance was ever found. 4 days after Margaret was last seen, her parents got a strange phone call. The caller's voice, just like John Marshall's, sounded like it belonged to a man in his late 30s or early 40s. He also gave a pretty odd statement to Margaret's mom over the phone. $10,000 is a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered topping.
$10,000 might be a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered topping.
Who was it?
The call was shortly followed up by 2 notes. The first one was a ransom note, but the second one said the deal was off. There was early speculation that Margaret's kidnapper was associated with a terrorist organization called the Symbionese Liberation Army. They'd made the news earlier that year after kidnapping the daughter of a well-known newspaper executive. This theory came about because one of the letters was signed so long again, and the letters S and A were set off, according to the Courier Post. It's possible the S and the A were made to look different on purpose, but this connection has never been proven, and it's not clear if the ransom call is real or a hoax. In August of that year, the FBI released a sketch of the man wanted for questioning in Margaret's case. He was thought to be driving a red-orange Volkswagen similar to the one Margaret was supposed to meet John Marshall and his wife in. The man was also close in age to what John Marshall was thought to be, and he'd allegedly tried to kidnap a girl in Mount Holly a month before Margaret's disappearance. But this lead apparently didn't go anywhere. In November of 1975, a man named Charles M. Cloudbridge said he kidnapped Margaret, killed her, and dumped her body from a cliff in the Catskill Mountains in New York. This set off a 3-month search in the area before Cloudbridge admitted his confession was a hoax. In May of 1976, he was sentenced to 2 to 3 years in prison for making the false confession. When asked by the judge who sentenced him why he'd done it, he said, "Honestly, Judge, I can't answer that." In June of 1977, 15-year-old Patricia Coulthau was killed on her way to a job interview after putting a babysitting ad in the paper. Patricia was killed in East Brunswick, about 50 miles northeast of Burlington, and her murder bore at least some resemblance to Margaret's disappearance, but no connection was ever found. Later that year, 31-year-old Jack Hausman pled no contest to killing Patricia. He was sentenced to life in prison. In 1988, female remains were found in Monmouth County, about 60 miles east of Burlington. A DNA sample obtained from Margaret's hairbrush was compared to this Jane Doe, but it wasn't a match. The doe still appears to have an entry on the Doe network, meaning she remains unidentified to this day. In 2017, retired New Jersey police officer Michael D'Alessio renewed the investigation into Margaret's case, working on it for free. Soon after this new investigation was made public, he started receiving tips of alleged sightings of Margaret. There had been early reported sightings of her as far away as Chicago, but none of them were ever confirmed. D'Alessio also wanted to take fingerprints obtained from the ransom note and put them in a national database to see if there was a match. On June 24th, 2019, the 45th anniversary of Margaret's disappearance, the FBI announced a $25,000 reward for information in the case. They also released a brief portion of the ransom call. This is the audio that you should have heard earlier. They said they didn't release it earlier because it wasn't clear, but has now been cleaned up with the help of modern technology. So what happened to Margaret Fox? D'Alessio wonders if she ran off somewhere and may still be alive. This theory is likely based on the tips he received of alleged sightings of her, as well as her diary entries about wanting to move to California or Florida and start a new life. But most people speculating about this case believe Margaret is dead, kidnapped and killed by the man who called himself John Marshall. Most people also agree that John Marshall is an alias, but why did he use that specific one? Some people believe he knew someone with this name and had a vendetta against them and wanted to pin Margaret's disappearance on them. Did John Marshall attempt to frame a rival for abduction and possibly murder? Or did he pick the name because it was a very common name and he thought it could help him blend in and not get caught? Some people also think John Marshall didn't actually meet Margaret in a red Volkswagen. Instead, he might have shown up in another, more ordinary-looking car that wouldn't have stood out to witnesses. The people who suggested this wondered if he made up a story to tell Margaret about the red Volkswagen, such as it being in the shop or something similar. Other speculation centers on why John Marshall rescheduled his meeting with Margaret so many times. Some people thought he was a family man or someone else who didn't live alone, but he wanted to be alone when he kidnapped Margaret. Others suggested he kept calling things off because he was nervous about whatever it was he planned to do. But the most talked about point of speculation online is the snippet of that alleged ransom call. Several people thought the man on the phone sounded like he had a New York or northern New Jersey accent. Some people thought he didn't have an American accent at all and wondered if he wasn't a native English speaker and or grew up outside of the United States. And several more people believe his line sounded rehearsed, with others noting how methodical and planned out this presumed kidnapping seemed to be. Whatever happened, we still don't know who John Marshall is or what happened to Margaret Fox. Margaret Ellen Fox was 14 years old when she was last seen in Mount Holly, New Jersey, on the morning of June 24th, 1974. Margaret is a white female who was 5 feet 2 inches tall and 105 pounds at the time of her disappearance, with brown hair, blue eyes, and freckles. She was last seen wearing jeans with a yellow patch on the knee, a blue blouse, a black and white checkered jacket, brown sandals, a gold necklace, a gold charm bracelet, and gold wireframe glasses with a broken-off nose. She was also carrying an eyeglass case with a design of the cartoon character Huckleberry Hound. If she were alive today, she would be 62 years old. If you have any information about this case, you can contact the Burlington City Police Department at 1-609-386-3300. There is a $25,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and or conviction of the person responsible.